I first saw Saabs in about 1960 when I went over to Denmark on a school trip, and the funny little car did rather appeal to me then. I'm actually a veterinary surgeon using just alternative medicine methods. This is homeopathy, acupuncture, herbs for treating animals, and we find this very, very useful, but of course it does make me a bit of a misfit. I'm a little bit unusual in my veterinary work, and I suppose this goes along with owning Saabs, that most people who own Saabs seem to be a little individualistic. They don't seem to be your normal car buyer, and it's certainly a minority make of car. So I'm ashamed to say I have 11 Saabs, in fact, in running order. We have 2 others, one for breaking, one for sale, but we have 11 actually running, ranging from the very, very first Saab that ever was imported into Britain, that's the yellow 92B, right up to a Saab Turbo Racer that actually won the Saab Mobile 1 Challenge in 1988.
In the spring of '67, obviously Saab had some decisions to make. There was change in the air. They'd gone as far as they could go with these rather funny, peculiar-looking little cars. America, still their biggest market, dictated they had something more in the way of a comfortable passenger saloon.
When you develop a car, you need something as a test bench for driving without any publicity. So we very simply took an old Saab 96, cut it apart in 2 pieces, and widened it. This hybrid, as we call it, we had a nickname called the Toad. And then we put in the new engine and the transmission, chassis, and so on for the new coming car.
The new model, the 99 as it was designated, really was a complete departure from Saab, from their normal, small, rather quirky little cars. It really was a total sea change, and I think it really marks Saab's entry into the executive car market.
Well, this is a 1978 Saab 99 Turbo. It was, if you like, the end development of the Saab 99 range. I think Saab were in a dilemma. They needed another engine to compete with BMW and 1 or 2 other larger manufacturers, and they wanted a new sporty image. So the obvious choice was to look for a different type of engine, which was probably a 6-cylinder engine, but they couldn't get it under the bonnet. So their idea, bearing in mind they related to Saab Scania, at the Scania lorry side, they looked into turbocharging. And this was the first application of in a production car of putting a turbo on basically a standard 2-litre engine. They uprated the head and strengthened it where necessary, but basically it's the standard cooking engine with a turbo attached.
Performance can be dangerous, but it's not also dangerous not to have performance in, for example, overtaking. Therefore, the turbo, we will say, give you more freedom to handle the car in a safe way.
This was basically a prototype to introduce the press to turbo motoring, and they loved every second of it. The only time the turbo will cut in is when you floor the accelerator. Then you'll hear it start to spool up with a low-pitched whine, and then all of a sudden the car takes off. And then you hang on. It's interesting, grand fun. But after, you get used to it after a while, especially when you've bought the 2nd or 3rd set of front tyres. Otherwise, it's just an ordinary standard saloon car, quiet and docile, no problems at all. It'll sit in traffic jams, it'll mess about, no temperament at all. But when you put your foot down, wow. Suddenly, you've got a sporty motor car. So you've got a family car and a sporty motor car in one. There were problems in the early days because people come tearing in off the motorway, stop with the turbo glowing cherry red, which they do quite normally, quite naturally, and switch the engine off, and then the engine could gel on the bearings. Next time it started the engine, it would whip the seals out the turbo. Hence you'd hear people having turbo explosions, and that's what usually caused it. The modern ones now, they're smaller turbo, water-cooled, and they've gradually refined it till it's really user-friendly now. You can forget all about them. I don't know why I started collecting Saabs, to be honest, because, well, I do. They're quirky. They don't follow anybody else's pattern. They do their own thing, their own way. Basically, it's driver's enjoyment, and you get a hell of a lot out of your motoring with Saab.
The 99 in a rather circuitous route became the 900, quite simply because Saab were not going to achieve what they wanted to achieve in the States with the current 99 model. There simply was not enough metal front and back to meet the very swinging crumple and crash laws that were being introduced into America at the time. And they did this simply by extending the chassis to incorporate a longer overhang at the front and a longer overhang at the rear, which will comply with their regulation. The classic 900 was the car that did more for Saab than any other of its vehicles. It was a model that was introduced in 1979 and in fact continued to evolve till its run-out year, which was 92/93. They still had this very strong aircraft heritage, and it manifested itself in the design from this huge sweeping windscreen, really. But when you're actually sitting there as a driver, you don't get any A-pillar in your line of peripheral vision. It really is pure Concorde, if you like.
The original 1000 was launched in '85 and carried on Saab's philosophy with the turbocharged engine and offered the public a high-performance luxury car with good fuel economy and good performance and a good size package.